morning, good afternoon or morning. It depends on your time. Right now, it just hit afternoon for us. Oh my gosh, y'all, they are back in court sooner than I anticipated. So, with that, I'm going to go ahead and hop on. I'm sorry, this is a quick hop on, but like I said, I didn't anticipate that trip to be so quick. So, anyway, let's get started and catch up. Uh, don't we? Here we go, y'all. I'm going to put it on this for the time being. And we get it up and running. Oh, why is it doing that? I hate it when it does that. It's not supposed to show that. Let me go full screen. See if that works. There we go.
All right. So, jurors, I want to remind you of the instructions that I gave you before we went on the view, and then I have a caution for you. So, we took a view today, the purpose of which was to help you to better understand the evidence, which you'll hear during the course of the trial, and to help you appreciate the location and its surroundings. The view that you took is part of this case, and the observations that you made while on the view may be used and considered in your deliberations. Remember that I told you that what you were to do on that view is best summarized as simply stop and look. Your responsibility was to see the place, observe it carefully, and remember what you saw. You were cautioned that while on the view, you were not to take any notes or photographs, and that you were not to conduct any independent investigation while we were there or at any time during the trial. So independent investigation includes, but is not limited to, any measurements that you may have taken or attempted to take. So to the extent that any of you did that, you must totally disregard it, because you must find the facts from the evidence presented to you in this courtroom. Okay? So with that, Mr. Lally, do you have a witness for us?
Yes, Your Honor. The Commonwealth will call on Mr. Gregory Woodbury to the stand.
Step up to the witness stand, please. Face that clerk and the jury. You solemnly swear to demonstrate to the court and jury in the case now hearing to the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God. I do. Thank you. We take the seat.
All right, Mr. Lally, whenever you're ready.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon.
Could you please state your name and spell your last name?
Greg Woodbury, Woodbury.
And what do you do for work, sir?
Any measurements that you may have taken or attempted to take. So to the extent that any of you did that, you must totally disregard it, because you must find the facts from the evidence presented to you in this courtroom. Okay? So with that, Mr. Lally, do you have a witness for us?
Yes, Your Honor. The Commonwealth will call on Mr. Gregory Woodbury to the stand.
the witness stand, please. Face that clerk and reserve. You solemnly swear the evidence of the court and jury in the case now hearing to the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God. I do. Thank you. Please take the seat.
I'm sorry about that confusion, guys.
All right, Mr. Lally, whenever you're ready.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon.
Could you please state your name and spell your last name? Please?
Greg Woodbury, Woodbury.
And what do you do for work, sir?
Lieutenant Paramedic on the Canton Fire Department.
And how long have you been a member of the Canton Fire Department?
About 24 years now.
How long have you had the rank of lieutenant within the Canton Fire Department?
That's been 8 years now.
Now, prior to working with Canton Fire Department, what, if any, other work did you have within that same sort of field?
Prior to being on Canton Fire, I was an EMT paramedic in the North Shore area.
And if you could just, with regard to your working as a paramedic and a firefighter, specifically as far as being a paramedic, what, if any, sort of specialized training did you receive in regard to, or certifications did you receive in regard to being a paramedic?
So after I got my EMT, when I went to paramedic school, I went to Northeastern University. It was a 1-year full-time program.
And following you successfully completed that program, is that correct?
Yes.
And is there any sort of continuing educational component or recertification component in regard to your paramedic certification?
Yeah, every 2 years, paramedics have to recertify. We're required to get so many hours of continuing education to recertify every 2 years.
If I could turn your attention to the date of January 28th, 2022 into January 29th, 2022. Were you working with the Canton Fire Department on that day?
Yes.
And what kind of shift were you working on that occasion, if you recall?
It was a 24-hour shift.
And 24-hour shift within the Canton Fire Department is what to what?
It's 8 a.m. to 8 a.m. the next day.
Now, turning your attention to the 29th, at what point do you sort of get up and start to begin your day at the fire station?
So a normal day, sorry, was that my beginning of the shift you're talking about, or the end of the shift?
Second day.
Okay, so the second part of the shift. Normally we get up at 6 for the officers, but I got up a little earlier then because we had the snowstorm coming in. So I had to make sure everything was shoveled. I think I got about maybe 5, check the apron of the area in front of the station, and make sure the walkways were clear.
And when you got up to check that, what, if anything, did you?
It had been snowing. There was blizzard type conditions coming in. So it was a decent level of snowfall there. Let me see, maybe 2-3 inches on the ground at that time.
And as far as with reference to that, what, if anything, did you do to?
I think we can move quickly through this part of it.
Yeah.
The cleaning the apron.
I
Okay.
wasn't getting to that.
Okay.
Okay.
As far as that particular date or that shift, how were you assigned within the firehouse?
I was lieutenant on engine 4.
And with respect to that, at some point shortly after 6 a.m., did you receive a dispatch to a call?
Yes. Yeah, we're dispatched to a call for a person in the snow.
And did you respond to that call, sir?
Yes, I did.
And you were assigned to the engine, is that correct?
Correct.
Who, if anyone else, was assigned to the engine that day with you on that shift?
So we had Cade McLaughlin and Frank Walsh were my 2 engine crew.
And in addition to yourself and your engine, what, if
Yep.
any, other sort of vehicles or apparatuses?
Ambulance 1 also responded with us. So that was Tony Flamati, Matt Kelly, and Tim Nuttall had also hopped on the ambulance. He was coming in for the shift in the morning, came in early to beat the storm.
And do you recall where the call was in regard to what the address was?
I don't remember the address offhand, but it was not that far away in the district.
And when you arrived in the engine, when you first arrived on scene, as you were arriving on scene, what, if anything, did you sort of see as upon your arrival?
So the police were already there. We were approaching the scene. I could see several people off to the side in the yard. doing something, so we went to investigate that.
Say off on the side, was that to your left, your right, or something?
So the way I was approaching the street, it was on the left-hand side.
And when you indicate you see some group of people, is that correct?
Yeah, there was a few people around. I don't remember exactly how many or what they were doing.
And when you start to make your way over there, what if any, when you arrive on scene?
Yep.
What is sort of the first thing?
So we went to evaluate the patient. I believe someone had started CPR prior to us getting there. So we went to continue that.
Yeah, they started it and then they stopped it. Then they started it. And then
I don't remember the
stopped it.
particular individual that was doing it as we arrived.
My only question, sir, so it's someone outside of your department, correct?
Yeah.
And do you know if it was one of the police officers or someone else?
I don't remember.
Now, obviously, you're dispatched in response to an unresponsive male, correct?
Yes.
And at the time that you're arriving on scene, you say you see sort of a cluster of people. Were you able to see that unresponsive male at that point?
Not in the vehicle, not until I exited the vehicle.
And at some point, much later or subsequently, did you come to learn the identity of the unresponsive male or the patient that you were involved in?
Afterwards, they told me yes. At the time, I did not know.
And what did you learn his name to be subsequently?
I'm sorry, I'm a little nervous and blanking right now.
Was it Mr. John O'Keefe?
Yes, correct.
It happens.
And when you first came over to where Mr. O'Keefe was on the ground, is that correct?
Yes, he was.
What kind of position was his body in when you first observed?
He was lying supine on the ground, like on his back. He was parallel to the street, about 8 feet away from the snowbank.
And in reference to that, as far as the snow was concerned, what if any snow did you observe on or around where you were?
He was covered with snow, and there was snow around the area.
And so from a
Why is my body not letting me in?
Yep.
What is sort of the first thing that you did or
We started CPR, or CCR, sorry. Immediately, someone went to go get a board to get him onto that so we can get him onto the stretcher and move him to the ambulance. And then someone else was trying to get the backstory, trying to figure out the scenario that we're dealing with.
If I could just stop you for a moment. So
Yeah.
you mentioned CCR, is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay. So what is the difference between CCR versus CPR?
CPR is cardiopulmonary resuscitation. So that is when you're helping someone breathe. CCR is when we first get to a scene. They changed the protocols a little while ago, so we don't have to give respirations right away. We can just do compressions. It's a little more effective to get the blood flowing quickly.
Thank you. As far as your involvement in patient care, sort of what
Yep.
was that during that initial phase where Mr. O'Keefe was supine on the ground? What was your involvement in patient care at that point?
I was assisting with the CPR, making sure everyone else was doing their task. As lieutenant, I kind of got to manage the other people and make sure
Oh,
everyone's
he's the
on target for what
lieutenant.
they're supposed to be doing.
And during that initial time that you're outside in the area where Mr. O'Keefe is on the ground, what if any observations did you make as far as
I'll
injuries?
have to correct it later.
Outside on the ground, he was covered in snow. So we're really not doing any sort of secondary survey initially. The primary concern is the primary survey, which is airway, breathing, circulation. He was not breathing. He had no pulse. So our primary concern is to get that going.
And at some point, are you able to get him from the ground to the back of the ambulance?
Yeah, we moved him onto a longboard, then moved him from longboard onto the stretcher, and brought the stretcher over the ambulance and loaded him in there.
You mentioned at some point upon your sort of initial arrival at the patient that different people were tasked with different things. Correct?
Yes.
And someone was tasked with trying to get sort of what you termed the backstory. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Why is that important?
So when you have someone unconscious, unresponsive, you want to know when they were last well, the last breathing, last seen, trying to figure out why someone is on the ground. There are different reasons of why they could be there, trying to figure that out. Normal people don't lay down in the snow. So trying to evaluate the reason the person was unconscious.
And so you're able to get him on, Mr. O'Keefe, onto a stretcher into the back of the ambulance, correct?
Yes,
Okay. And fair to say that the lighting in the back of the ambulance is better than it was outside.
correct.
And when you're in the back of the ambulance, are you able to then do or participate in that secondary survey you were
Yeah,
talking about?
yeah, we started doing a secondary survey after we started getting good compressions going. Someone was working on the intubation, and then one of the procedures is to strip off the clothes and evaluate the person.
And if you recall, how were the clothes removed?
I don't recall exactly which method they used. Typically, we cut them off, but I'm not sure if they did that or they just pulled them off.
And what, if anything, do you recall as to Mr. O'Keefe's clothing and sort of what he was wearing when?
Sorry, had to let the dog
I-
out.
Really wasn't paying attention to it. The primary concern is trying to revive
Oh,
them.
kitten too.
So to that secondary survey, as far as once you're in the back of the ambulance, what, if anything, did you observe as far as injuries on Mr. O'Keefe at that?
He had a hematoma or a bruising. The right eye was very prominent. There was some scratches on the right forearm. Was most of the external injuries we noted.
And now, in addition, so as far as people on scene, there were a number of different firefighters from your
Yes.
department.
Thank you for joining me. I
You mentioned
greatly
that the
appreciate
police were
you.
on scene when you arrived, is that correct?
Correct.
So beyond the police and fire, what, if any, other individuals did you observe at some point when you were on scene?
There was some other civilians there. I really wasn't paying attention to them.
Now, with reference to that backstory that you were talking about, at any point in time, either outside of the ambulance or inside of the ambulance, who, if anyone, was tasked by you or anyone else to try and obtain that backstory?
I think Katie McLaughlin was the one that obtained the backstory.
And if you know, was there any other conversation that you were present for between any of your other firefighters and any of those civilians?
That was primarily when she relayed to us the information that she had obtained. We were trying to figure out the scenario of why he was found unconscious, unresponsive.
Let me ask you this way. So as far as arrival at the patient when he's on the ground,
Yep.
who gets there first? You and the other individuals in the engine, or the firefighters in the ambulance?
We both respond from the same station at the same time. The engine's in the front, the ambulance usually in the rear. So I believe we pulled over, the ambulance pulled over at the same time as us. I believe C5 went as well, which is the captain. He was also responding with us.
Now, as far as the person that Firefighter McLaughlin spoke to, what, if anything, did you know about that person at that time?
At that time, I knew nothing. I knew that it was someone that had been with him. She relayed the information of what she had heard to us.
And the information that Firefighter McLaughlin, without reference to what it was, but the information that Firefighter McLaughlin was able to obtain, did she communicate that to you and the other firefighters in the ambulance?
Yes. Yeah, she came in the ambulance, told us what she had heard.
As far as the information that Firefighter McLaughlin provided, did that comport with what you were observing as far as injuries to Mr. O'Keefe?
Objection.
Sustained. You can lay a foundation if.
Now, as far as, again, the injuries that you observed to Mr. O'Keefe in the back of the ambulance were what?
It was the bruising of the right eye and the scratches on the forearm.
And what, if anything, did Firefighter McLaughlin indicate to you had been told to her?
That someone said she had hit him, and he was last seen.
Objection. Move to strike.
Sustained. That will be stricken.
May we approach on?
Okay.
Okay. Hmm. Okay, what do y'all think? It's been kind of Nothing new here. We're I'm waiting for the shoe to drop with him. I don't have any ahas. What do y'all think? Right now it's pretty calm. Sorry, I've got to keep an eye on the shop. So for me, right now, uh, we're too early in the testimony for me to have an opinion one way or the other. I'm still wanting to know why did they not continue CPR when the police officer first showed up on scene? If they saw Karen Reed trying to do CPR, trying because it was only mouth to mouth, when Officer Saraf showed up on scene, he should have immediately started CPR. So why CPR was not continued? I struggle with that a little bit, y'all. I really do. I don't understand why he did not, I repeat, did not continue the CPR. In my humble opinion, that would have been a very vital thing for him to do. They're trained in this. They know how to do this. This is something they live with every single day. Why did he not drop on the knees and start chest compressions like the gentleman who just spoke said he did? He saw that there had been an attempt of CPR, and thus he, again, thus he, you know, I'm confused. I'm very confused. That point still bothers me to this minute, and it is frustrating.
Because we always try and check and make sure that your lunch is here before we take a break. I'm told that it is. So we will take a lunch break. We'll see everybody here ready to start right at 2 o'clock.
Okay, so we're gonna skim forward and see if we can get through the break. Okay, let me go ahead and put it in here. Okay. So they're on lunch break. I'm hoping they won't take too much longer. So they started lunch break at, let's see. Yeah, they're still on lunch break. So I'm kind of humbly going, what the hell? I'm really going, what the hell? Because I don't understand why they didn't do CPR from the get go. And why did they not sequester the witnesses that were running around like chickens with their head cut off? I have never been on it, and I've been on scenes, y'all. I have never been on a scene where they allowed people to run around like they did here. Honestly, I never have. I don't understand it. It's offsetting to me. So if you're joined me live, welcome. I appreciate you being here. Comment let me go to Facebook. I got to make my comments on Facebook Live. I'm sorry. We jumped on so fast, y'all, that I have to go in every time and manually allow comments. Public. I try to make this permanently public, but it doesn't work. So now if you're on Facebook, you can comment. Otherwise, if you're on YouTube, thank you for watching me. I'm very blessed that you are. Mods, good afternoon. So, how many of us have questioned about the actual, what's the word I'm looking for? The timing of all the logs and everything that they have done with the call logs. Do you know when they first get there, the call log discrepancy? I don't know if y'all are aware of this, but the call log says that from EMS that they arrived like at 6:09. I said it earlier, 16, 6:09, whatever. And they say that 3 police officers showed up. I'm a little hot. I'm going to bring this down and back. They said that the police officers showed up literally 11 seconds apart, when in reality, they showed up 17 minutes apart. There's a lot of discrepancy over the, what's the word I'm looking for? How the body, concerning the body and the layout of the body. I find that kind of interesting. So, and then I'm kind of looking at my notes here. Also, we have a situation where we have one of the EMTs, which was the last person that was actually, oh, where is it? What is her name? I have gone brain dead, y'all. I literally have 15 pages of notes as it is. Katie McLaughlin. Yeah, Katie McLaughlin. She stated that she did not have a relationship with Albert. Caitlin Albert. And in fact, she really did. She said that they didn't have anything to do with each other. They were in a circle together. They were friendly, but there was pictures presented that were not shown to the jury. They were voyeured, or however some people say it. And so now, I'm writing down Lieutenant Gregory's name. Bury. I thought it was Barry, but Bury. Paramedic. And anyway, oh, okay. I messed up. I'm going to do it this way. So anyway, she was stating that they were just acquaintances, that they never really were friends. They were in the same groups together in high school. They kind of hung out in similar groups together in high school. And for me, I'm like, okay, that may be fine and good, but in reality, I think they were friendlier than she lets on. She said she didn't know that was her house, the house of Caitlin and Nicole, I guess her mother, Brian Albert, her father. But I have a suspicion she knew more than just she was letting on. I'm just my own humble opinion. By the way she was answering those questions, y'all, I do not believe for 1 minute she had no clue as to what was going on. I'm not saying she knew that moment that the house was Caitlin's house, but what I am saying is I firmly believe that she knew enough. I believe she knew enough. And I believe she knew enough to be able to, what's the word I'm looking for? She didn't know the address when they arrived. She knew it very shortly after. I can't imagine her not knowing. I can't imagine, just like I cannot imagine. I can only imagine. Sorry, my brain went somewhere else. But I really can't imagine somebody not knowing, seriously, not knowing that Nobody on scene, none of the first responders knew that this was Brian O'Keefe, another police officer. I don't believe it 1 minute, because as a first responder, y'all, I do have some knowledge of some of the people who are on my team, who I am working with, who I am involved with, who I spend my time with. I may not know them personally, but when I'm on scene all the time, I see police officers and people that I know, and it's not that we're best friends, it's not that we're acquaintances, but I recognize them. And when we're on scene, hey, how are you? So if I'm on scene and there's a deceased person and I'm told that this is so and so, I'm going to know that that person so and so is a first responder. And the town, as small as it is, I just struggle. Once again, I struggle with the fact that they say that nobody knew that this person who's laying on the ground, who is definitely deceased. I mean, they're trying to save him, they're trying to revive him. There's no question to it. And nobody knows that he is a first responder. I just struggle with this, y'all. And I know I keep saying it, but y'all, he they knew. They knew very well. And the fact that they're saying they didn't know, I doubt it. And I know I'm being harsh on them. I mean, we all work with people and we all know all these people and stuff, and there's only 2 fire departments, firehouses. Only 2 firehouses in that entire community. We have 4. And I can guarantee you that 9 times out of 10, I run up to somebody on scene. I've seen them many times before. That is my humble opinion, but it is the truth. It is the truth. I know for a fact when I see somebody on scene, if I've seen them before and I've worked with them before. I know I'm just kind of rambling on about this, but it just drives me back crazy to think that person, not one person on that scene knew that he was a police officer. Please explain this to me. I'm really perplexed. And I think somebody is right. Said they said there was no crime scene tape. The other thing also is that not only was there no crime scene tape, y'all, they got a freaking blower. How many of y'all think it's a smart idea to get a blower? Okay? A blower. And start blowing the yard with a neighbor's handheld blower? I think that's a little bit ridiculous, don't you? Any and all taillight evidence, if there was any, is now gone. And the other thing is that she's there on scene. How and why would they allow her to leave scene? They're coming back. Then she comes back because she's suicidal. And then I think it's section 12 there, where they took her in for her own safety. I'm confused about that, y'all. I don't know. Maybe it's just me. But in the end, we'll find out eventually. Eventually, we will all find out. Why is there ocean music playing? What? The mic? What? That's the street. Oh, y'all, that is the street. Oh my gosh, y'all, you can hear the street. The news people have their mic on and forgot. Let's listen in. Oh my gosh, I wish I could hear more Shay. Come on, talk. Talk. Oh my gosh, y'all, I'm trying to listen. Y'all, they have the oh my gosh. So anyway, back to the situation with all the paramedics and stuff. I'm sorry. I can't believe not a single one of them did not know in any way, shape, or form that um that any way, shape, or form that 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 was a fellow officer or that it was another officer's house. And if they knew, why didn't they go get Brian Albert? It was his freaking house, for goodness sake. Why did they not go and get him? Pray tell. Why do you think they did not go and get him? I'm a little perplexed. What is y'all's humble opinion? I'm confused as to why they did not go get him and say, "Sir, excuse me, there's somebody practically deceased on your lawn. We need you to come out right now and ID this person. Did you know they were here? Why or why have you not come out?" I mean, I just have a bunch of questions, y'all. I have a bunch of questions, and I'm not sorry to say that, but I do. A bunch of questions. I don't know. I need some comments, guys. Comment, like, and subscribe. What do you think? What is your humble opinion? Do you not find this odd that that they did not come out of the house, that nobody knew he was there?
Sorry, Zip.
Oh, I'm going to be going live. I know I'm looking down a lot, guys. Actually, I'm doing something at the same time. So I'm done with it. I will be going live tonight. We're going to look at more with this case. We're going to talk a little more freely with this case. And then what I'm going to do is we're going to talk a little bit more of the George Kelly and what's happening with him. There was an interview. If anybody have any other comments or anything, not everybody has seen that interview, and it's tagged on the end of one of my other lives. So I want to give it its timely due. So I'm going to go do that tonight at 7 o'clock. I've never done a live like this late at night, so I hope some people will join me. Come on, I'm trying to finish something with work. But I find it interesting that we are hearing the traffic outside. I'm kind of perplexed by it. I'm going to go ahead and lower it because it sounds awfully loud to me. So, Here they are. I'm looking here at my notes from the opening statement by the state, and they did a lot of history on John O'Keefe. Um, they have said that Karen Reed said, I hit him, I hit him. No one's mentioned about finding his phone under his body. I want to know, what does his metadata on the phone say? They haven't really done anything about their tail light yet. Not much. Okay, footprints around the car. No footprints. They kind of mentioned a little bit about her going into the house at 4:30 into the daughter's room. Um, they did touch on this for a minute. What do y'all think? And I'm looking for the metadata. What do y'all think about the time frame that they stated that Jennifer searched on her phone how long it takes to die in the cold? They say the defense says that that was about 6:23. The defense says 2:30, and the prosecution says 6:23. So that has not really been proven. Um, the sneaker, they haven't dealt that. They haven't dealt with a lot. I'm looking at everything that they stated that they were going to prove, and right now, all they proved is that KR confessed to somebody, I hit him, I hit him. That's it. Nothing else other than the fact that Mr. O'Keefe passed away from injuries. The injuries have been very consistent. Defense. Um, my notes on the defense. It's just not moved very much. They keep putting up all of the first responders that showed up, which is typical and normal. I get that. But for me, one of the things that got me is that the defense has rattled every cross examination. My dog is harassing me at the moment. She's my service dog. I am legally deaf without my hearing aids and my special ears, and she came from Service Dogs Inc., and that's awesome. Okay, guys, I'll be right back. We got a package arriving. I have to go grab it. I'll let you sit and listen to them. Thank you so much for waiting for me. I greatly appreciate it. So, what? Oh, yay, we got the wonderful fan. Whoop, whoop. We got the wonderful fan, and I knocked my cookies over. I don't need that big container. I got these. Oh, a friend came in with them. And I said, y'all don't bring me cookies. They're chocolate mint and they taste like the Girl Scout mint cookies. And she got 3 containers. So there's 24 of these squares. $1 a piece at HEB grocery store where we shop in Central Texas. And they had a big sale. And I mean, they taste just like the Girl Scout cookies. And they're bigger. I mean, they're decent size. So freaking addicting. I'm gonna go get more and put them in the freezer. I don't eat a lot, but I do. Hi, Andrea. Thank you. Yeah, she could have accidentally hit him, but the injuries do not look indicative of a car hit. I have seen injuries from when someone's been rolled over on, whether it be a foot, a leg, a torso. I've seen injuries when people have been bumped. I have a friend that's barely 4'5", and I mean 4'5", 4'9". I mean, little bitty thing. Little bitty thing. And the grocery store guy ran over her. He didn't see her, ran right over her. And I've seen injuries where someone has just been bumped. There's going to be a mark. And if he's 6 foot standing up and she backed into him, it's going to be between the thigh bone and the lower chest. Somewhere in that area. I'd venture to say more hips and lower pelvic area. I don't get it. I don't. To me, it doesn't fit the mold. To me, the injuries fit more into the fact that the person was sorry, I'm doing something I don't want to do. That the person was more in a situation that they were in a fight or an altercation of some kind. Y'all, this notebook will be full by the time this jury is over and this court is over. I'm on day 4 and I literally have like 15 pages. That's the end of day 3, day 4. So I'm really taking a lot of notes. No, she did not die, but it was a very long recovery. She's a dear, dear friend of mine. She did spend time in a care facility. It was a lot of injuries. She had a broken back and other things, but she survived and she's getting around. And I see her a couple times a year, and I love her dearly. And I'm so blessed she's still here with us. But my point is that if you were to be bumped by the car, it would not cause the injuries that Mr. O'Keefe had. And I'm not a ME. I'm not a medical examiner. Okay, I can only speak from my personal experience. I'm not a lawyer yet. I can only speak from my personal experiences, but I have never experienced someone getting hit by a car at a low speed or a high speed and there not be some evidence of that. And there's nothing. There's look to be like dog scratches and bites on his arm. That didn't come from the car. And the broken the nose injury and the eye injury and the knot on his head, they haven't mentioned much about the back of the head yet. They talked about it with one EMT paramedic, but they have not mentioned. How's my sound, Andrielle? Oh, that's why. I don't have this ear in. Oh, no wonder I can't hear myself. Oh, I have my soundboard. Just so y'all know, my soundboard is cranked to 100%. When I go and interpret for Christian concerts in ASL and I bring my ears and my little magic system, my magic box, I call it, and I tell them, crank it to 100%. The sound people say, we legally can't. And I give them a piece of paper saying, I give you permission to do so and hold harmless agreement. So that is how bad my hearing is. So I grew up hearing. That's why I speak so well. And I also work on my speech right now to not get that toned that a lot of hard of hearing or deaf people get. So the fan is moving and it is dirty, y'all. I want to go clean the fan. Get your cleaning crew, clean the dust off the fan. But there's nothing we can do. Um, are you going to come join me, Andrielle? Is it Andrielle or Andrielle? Or do you go by Andrea or Andy? What do you go by? I'm sorry. I'm learning. But the tonight's should be fun. I want to have fun. I want to have fun, talk about all this. It's going to be where people can sit there and share their humble opinions and it not be tied into the court feed. Girl, whoever thought you could find the same tasting cookie that's not a Girl Scout cookie? It is so close. I actually like these a little better because of the size. I have to have 2 of the Girl Scouts to match one of these. How many of us sit there and eat Girl Scout cookies and we end up realizing we've done a whole row? Brainlessly watching TV. Let me look through my notes because I want to see if there's anything else that we can chat about. I thought Paul O'Keefe did really good on the regular examination. I think on the cross examination they kind of pulled him apart. I was really I found it interesting that when Paul O'Keefe, he didn't get torn apart. I'm thinking of Seraph. When Paul O'Keefe said that after they came from the hospital and they had uh, taken care of the situation with his brother there, that they went to tell the children. Now, the son was staying over at a friend's house, so he had to be driven back. So the son and the daughter were not told at the same time together. But Karen Reed showed up. She asked to come, and I get her being there because she was around the kids a whole lot. She took care of the kids when John was not there to take care of the kids because he was working through COVID. But what gets me is that that Karen went upstairs. I don't think she asked. She just went upstairs like she owned the place. Got a bag of her stuff, I presume. Nobody investigated the bag. Her father was with her. Nobody else was with her up there. Being that she took what she could get of her personal belongings and left the house. Um, I don't know. That just kind of catches me odd that she would do that so quickly. I understand he was deceased, but at that time, I don't think, if I understand correctly, they didn't discuss who was staying with kids, where were the kids going to be. Technically, it probably would have been best for her to stay with the children because she knew the children better than any of them did. So why Did she not? Why did she just get her stuff and run? First of all, I did see the video. We did see the video of her backing up and hitting the car, hitting John O'Keefe's car. When that happened, there was very little, if nothing, had happened as far as the damage is concerned. And when she drove away, there was nothing broken, no tail lights, no anything broken, not a thing. So for me, um, from what I could see from the security camera, there was snow on the ground. If the taillight had been broken, you would see the pieces, the red pieces of the taillight on the snow. Now, some are saying that it had cracked, but when she hit John O'Keefe, it shattered and broke. But 45 pieces? That's a lot, y'all. I would think it'd be more in bigger chunks, in my own humble opinion. So before we get started, I appreciate you hanging in there, everybody. I'm going to go take a little girl's room break so I don't have to leave in the middle of trial.
All right. Why don't we get the lieutenant back up here? Thank you.
Sir, I'll remind you, you're still under oath.
Go right ahead, Mr. Lally.
So Lieutenant Woodbury, turning your attention back to the treatment of Mr. O'Keefe in the back of the hand, correct?
Yes.
With respect to that, you testified that you don't recall sort of specifically anything as far as clothing for Mr. O'Keefe, is that correct?
I was not paying attention to the clothing.
And so to that point, what were you paying attention to at that?
Primarily, the big issue was doing the CCR, then to CPR. We're trying to resuscitate the person as best we can. We know with the hypothermic patient, it's very difficult. It's a longer treatment protocol than a typical cardiac arrest because we have to do the CPR for an extended period
That's
of time.
the
We have to
judge's
keep the patient
breathing.
warmed up. So the clothing is just quickly removed versus examined or looked at. And the focus was on getting compressions done. Someone was trying to intubate, getting a line started. So that's what we're mainly focused on.
As far as treatment is concerned, what, if any, sort of interplay or intersection is there between a cardiac arrest and a hypothermic patient?
When someone's hypothermic and in a cardiac arrest, we can't declare them dead or passed on until they've been warmed up. A lot of times, hypothermic patients, they can appear to be dead when they're still actually alive. So there has been instances where people have woken up in morgues that were hypothermic when their body warmed up a little bit. So we have to be very cautious, very careful about, treating them as much as we can, as careful as we can. We can't shake them too much, can't move them too much. So it's getting the blood circulating and then starting ventilating after a few minutes.
Back to the CCR, the chest compression.
Yep.
Get on the mic.
What, if any, sort of, based on your training and experience, what, if any, sort of protocols are? Well, let me ask you this. Were you doing chest compressions throughout the entirety of this interaction with the patient?
No, chest compressions, most people do it for about
Sorry
2
if that
minutes.
blew
After
your
2 minutes,
ears.
it's very tiring to do chest compressions. So we swap off every few minutes. So a different person will come in and do the compressions. They'll do it for a little while, go into a different task. Someone else will come in and do compressions.
Is that sort of the protocol that you followed in this instance? With
Yes.
regard to Mr. O'Keefe?
Yes, we were rotating the person doing compressions.
And the
Which is good.
ambulance at some point leaves the scene and goes to a hospital, is that correct?
Correct.
Did you know what hospital Mr.
Good Samaritan Medical Center.
Meredith.
If you could just wait till
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm sorry.
questions.
Yeah, a Good Samaritan, Good Samaritan Medical Center.
And did you go along for that ambulance ride?
No, I did not.
And where did you go?
So as the lieutenant on the engine, I stay with the engine. I detailed my 2 other engine personnel to the ambulance. So they went with the 2 engine personnel, the 2 regular people on the ambulance, as well as an additional person. Timmy Nuttall was the extra person for that one.
And so you take the engine and go with it.
I went back to the station.
And at some point shortly after that, are you called back to the roadway of Fairview Road?
Yes.
And same general area of Fairview Road?
Yes, same address.
And how is it that you get from the station back to Fairview?
So we had struck a box to cover the personnel that we had detailed. That means we send out a page looking for additional people to come in. We had Sam Pock come in. So he was my engine driver, and I was in the lieutenant's seat. We responded back in engine 4.
And the ambulance that had been there on Fairview Road with you previously was at Good Samaritan?
Yes. Yeah, a call like that takes an extended period of time, even at the hospital, to assist them there. So we had to get an ambulance from Station 2.
And if you know, who was on that ambulance from Station 2?
That was Jason Becker and Dan Whitley.
Now, with reference to this particular call, what, if anything, was this secondary dispatch with regard to?
So this call was for a Section 12, which is someone in having a psychological issue.
And do you know who that Section 12 was in regard to?
Yeah, this was for Karen Reed.
Section 4.
And at some point, you go back to the scene along with the engine and the second ambulance from Station 2?
Yeah, so the engine got there first. The ambulance coming from the other station, so it was a couple extra minutes before they got there.
And when you arrived, who, if anyone,
How they're going to
else
pan over to her.
on scene on Fairview Road at that time?
The police were still on scene. They had never left. So initially it was me, Sam Pock, and the police. So I went up to try to get the backstory of why we're doing a Section 12 and what was going on.
And at some point, well, when you first arrived, without regard to what was said to you, but who, if anyone, do you speak with to sort of try to gain this information or backstory?
When I got onto the scene, I talked to the police that was there.
Who'd you talk to, sir? The police officer
The
who
police
was
officer,
there?
yes. Sorry.
And do you recall specifically who that police officer was?
I really did not pay attention to the individual officer.
And at some point, do you have a conversation, or what, if any, conversation do you have with the patient, in this case, the defendant, Ms. Reed?
So it was when we identified Karen Reed as the patient, the ambulance arrived shortly after. We started talking to her and trying to get her into the ambulance to talk to her further.
And just to be clear for the records, when you say Ms. Reed, do you see her in the courtroom today?
Yes, she's right over there.
That's a record reflect identification of the defendant by the witness?
Yes.
Thank you. Now, with respect to the defendant, Ms. Reed, where is she sort of when you
Get on the mic, dude.
contact with her on scene when you come back?
In the general vicinity of where the police cars are.
And what is sort of the purpose of this initial conversation that you're having with Ms. Reed?
For a Section 12, that's when someone's made threats to them, harm themselves or others. So I just had to judge her mental ability at the time and if she was a threat to us and how much of a threat she was to herself. So just a quick evaluation, see how her behavior was.
And what, if any, observations did you make of her during your quick conversation?
She appeared very distraught, very upset. Initially just trying to explain the situation to her about going to the hospital with the Section 12, and she was resistant to that.
And so when you say she was resistant to that, what, if anything, did she say or do to?
She did not want to go.
Hold on. You cannot talk over each other.
Sorry.
The objection's overruled.
Yeah. Okay.
Please go ahead.
So what was the question again, please? Yeah.
So what, if anything, when you say she was resistant, what, if anything, did she communicate to you or observations did you make in regard to that?
She did not want to go to the hospital, and she didn't think she needed any assistance.
And what, if anything, are you sort of, you mentioned you were explaining sort of the process to her. What, if anything, are you saying in that explanation?
Well, once a Section 12 gets written, it's written by the police. Once it's written, we are required to transport to the hospital. Section 12 means that they believe you're a threat to yourself or others. So you have to get evaluated at the hospital by the hospital staff there to see how mentally stable you are.
Now, at this time of this conversation, what, if anything, did you know as far as the relationship between Ms. Reed and the prior patient, Mr. O'Keefe?
I knew they had a relationship. I wasn't sure if they were married or engaged or what their status was, but I knew she was did have a strong relationship with him.
And in reference to Mr. O'Keefe, during your conversation with Ms. Reed, what, if anything, was she asking or saying in reference to Mr. O'Keefe?
She kept repeating, "Is he dead? Is he dead?" She seemed very concerned about that. We're trying to explain to her that we cannot declare him dead. He's being evaluated. He's being treated. They're trying to treat him the best they can.
And as far as when she's stating these things to you, is this, as far as the sort of tonality of her voice while she's saying these things to you, can you describe that?
She was very up and down. It was a repetitive conversation with her. She's obviously experiencing a lot of different emotions. So just her emotional state was all over the place.
And as far as this sort of second time that you're on scene, about how long period of time are we talking?
That was about between 15 and 20 minutes.
And as far as your conversation with Ms. Reed, where did she go? Did you stay with her sort of the entire time that she was on scene that second time? Or
Because she was resistant, we were trying to get her to voluntarily go. If someone voluntarily goes, even with the section written, they're released a lot quicker. So we're trying to convince her to be willing to go with us versus being forced. If at some point we have to actually force her to go against her will, then it's going to be a much longer hospital stay. So our main goal with staying on the scene so long was to try to get her willingly to go. Just makes her experience much better.
And just to be clear, when you say we, who specifically are you?
It was me, Dan Whitley, Jason Becker were the ones talking to her in the back of the ambulance.
When you clear, sort of when you leave the scene, where is Ms. Reed at that point?
So the ambulance transported her to the Good Samaritan. We also detailed Sam Park as the driver.
So the gentleman who had driven, or the firefighter that had driven you in the engine to the scene that
Yep.
drives the ambulance away?
Yes, correct.
Would you say his name again, please?
Sam Park.
Sam what?
Sam Park.
Spell it, please, the last name?
P-O-C-H is the last name.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Oh, POC. P-O-C-H.
Thank you, sir. I have no further questions.
Okay. Eddie?
Thank you. Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon.
Saying it like it's
Mr. Woodbury,
all
you and I
one
have never met or spoken
Sam Park.
before.
No.
instead of Sam Puck.
I know you had said you were nervous, so I'm going to try and make
Okay.
this fairly brief,
Thank you.
sir. I just have a couple of areas that I'd like to go
Okay.
through with. So with regard to your interaction with Karen Reed and what you actually heard from her mouth.
Okay.
That's sort of where I want to concentrate, as opposed to anything that anybody else may have said to you about what they believe she might have said. Okay?
Okay.
And it seems to me that your main interaction with her was not when the initial call came in to respond to, a man who was unresponsive in the snow. It was after you went back to the station in the engine and then came back to the scene for the purposes of the Section 12 that you described. Would that be fair to say?
Correct.
And when you came back to the scene for the Section 12, it's also fair to say that the Section 12 issue was your focus, correct?
Correct.
You had an order in hand, correct?
The police had it and they gave it to us when we got there.
Right. Okay. So you got an order in hand once you got there,
Correct.
which is what you expected to happen, correct?
Yes.
And your focus at that point is, okay, and I don't want to be too, flip, but we can do this the easy way or the hard way. Is that a fair characterization?
That is one way to put it.
And you wanted to do it the easy way.
Yes, correct.
And you wanted to persuade Karen Reed that she should want to do it the easy way, correct?
Yes,
And after some conversation back and forth where she was initially resistant, she eventually agreed, yes, I'll do, not to put words in your mouth or hers, but to the effect of, yes, we'll do this the easy way, correct?
did get her to agree to transport.
Okay. And with regard to her state of mind, I believe you had testified that she appeared to be very distraught,
Yes, correct.
going through a lot of emotions,
Yes.
grief-stricken,
Oh, that's one of them. Yes.
hysterical at times,
Yes.
raising her voice at times,
Yes.
crying at times.
I didn't see any actual tears, but
That
yeah,
type.
that type of emotional display.
All right. And so in terms of the only commentary that you heard with regard to her feelings or questions regarding John O'Keefe, it was the statements that you heard repetitively over and over and over again. Is he dead? Is he dead? Is he dead? Is he dead?
That was some of the things she was saying. Yes.
Your Honor, may we approach sidebar briefly?
Okay. Snap. Sidebar. Wow, y'all. Okay. Here we go. Sidebar music. So I kind of like this guy right now. I don't see anything inappropriate. The section 12 is common. It happens. Nothing unusual. When someone is, I've seen it happen a few times when we've contacted women and did a DOA and their spouse was killed in a car wreck or something and they don't recover well enough. They're hysterical and out of control and there's nobody else with them. Nobody staying with them. I stay with them, but we've had a few women transported in the same situation because you want to make sure they're not going to harm themselves. It's not uncommon for someone who loves somebody to turn around and say, well, if they're not here, I'm not going to be here. Happens a lot more with older people, though. I'm not saying she said that. I am in a good place this afternoon. I've had headaches for the last couple of days, and I don't today. Okay. Looks like they're coming back. Maybe not. I really hate the way this courtroom layout is. If the family believes she murdered John O'Keefe, they're sitting within arm's reach of her, literally. And then
So
the jury is facing the
Hold
family.
on,
I
hold
think,
on for a
Ms.
second.
Giannetti, I think you need the actual,
Yes. I was going to ask a couple of questions first and then grab it.
but it's right there for when you need it.
Lieutenant Woodbury, on your direct examination, you testified a bit, and I don't want to block a jury here, I'm sorry. You testified a bit about the injuries that you observed on John O'Keefe when you first arrived at the scene, correct?
Yes.
You testified about the swollen eye,
Yes.
and you also testified about the scratch marks that you saw on his forearm, correct?
Correct.
I'd like to show you, I'm going to approach in a minute to show you what has been marked M for identification. And when I hand it to you, please keep it to yourself and look at it, and then look up at me when you're done, okay?
I don't know if this is going to be graphic, but I'm ready to block it. Although they're handling this stuff a whole lot more. I'll be right back.
Having reviewed M for identification, do you recognize what that depicts?
Yes.
Coming.
What does it depict?
That is Mr. O'Keefe's right arm.
All right. Does that photograph appear to be a fair and accurate representation of the scratch marks that you observed on January 29th of 2022, sir?
Yes.
I would offer that, Your Honor.
Okay. That will be our next exhibit. And again, we'll have to maybe renumber. Counsel, before you leave today, we have to figure out how to keep everything straight.
Understood. And with the court's permission, Your Honor, may I have that published on the screen for the jury?
Yes.
Now, on direct examination, Lieutenant, hang on, let me just have a moment. Oh, good point. I'm going to try to get out of your way so everybody can see. With regard to the injuries that you described on direct examination, Lieutenant, I believe you would mainly concentrate.
I'm sorry. I need to, please take this down for me. I need to counsel.
It's just right now not looking good for the prosecution. Now, it's nowhere. Yeah, it's gonna be a long one. But please, I put 200. Okay, then 3 people dropped out. So, friends, please, I'm gonna go live tonight at 7. Okay, and we're gonna catch up with the George Kelly 43. The George Kelly interview that he did. Then I'm gonna catch everybody on the trial. Now, who's George Kelly? Who's George Kelly? George Kelly was a rancher that was accused that he got acquitted of killing the guy. 44 and 45. The jury got hung and he got acquitted. The border, yeah. I didn't want that one either. Let's see his interview. Part of it. Tell me what's your name again? Bruce. Bruce, is that your name on the thing? Yeah. Please. Oh, yeah. Back, y'all. Sorry about that. We get packages today. Sensei, come here. No, come on. My doggy. Okay, guys, what's happening? Catch me up. Somebody. Ooh, what happened? It's awfully quiet. Did I do something? Andrea, what happened? Why do we not have volume? Okay, I'm going to have to back it up.
What if any? What if anything did she say or do to?
Well, she did not want to go.
Hold on. You cannot.
Well, once Section 12 gets written, it's and she's
Sorry, guys.
back.
Spell it, please.
You wanted to do it the easy way, correct?
Okay, what are they doing? I'm sorry, guys. I'm perplexed. Sorry about that. Unfortunately, I do have to sometimes get up and get packages for the business. And it kind of can delay or interfere a little bit with my streaming. So they're having a little sidebar. Is that what we're doing here? Okay. Let's see. Yeah, they're having a sidebar because she's sitting there.
Show you what has been marked.
There we go.
M for identification. And when I hand it to you, please keep it to yourself and look at it, and then look up at me when you're done. Okay?
And we were here when I left. I apologize.
Recognize what that depicts?
Yes.
What does it depict?
That is Mr. O'Keefe's right arm.
All right. Does that photograph appear to be a fair and accurate representation of the scratch marks that you observed on January 29th of 2022, sir?
Yes.
I would offer that, Your Honor.
Okay. That will be our next exhibit. And again, we'll have to maybe renumber. Counsel, before you leave today, we have to figure out how to keep everything straight.
Understood.
I don't think they're going to stream much longer, but I've seen this picture. If you
With the
guys
court's
have
permission, Your Honor,
are
may I
you're
have that
squeamish,
published
don't
on the
look when
screen
it
for the
pops
jury?
up.
Yes.
But it's not bad enough that I can't post it.
Now, on direct examination.
Here we go. Turn
Lieutenant-
away if you can't handle scratches.
Let me just have a
Deep
moment.
ones. Dog bites.
Good point.
That looks like dog puncture bites because I've been bit. I was a dog groomer for years, especially
With
these
regard
by the
to,
elbow.
the injuries that you described on direct examination.
That looks like dog.
Lieutenant, I believe you would mainly concentrate.
I'm sorry. I need to, please take this down for me. I need to counsel.
Oh, gee, gads. So that's why. Okay, now we're up to par. Oh, I'm sorry, y'all. I apologize for me having to skim a little bit. We are now, oh, they've taped off some of the seating. Interesting. I'll be right back. Sorry, we have a business sometimes I have to step away for. There's somewhere. Oh, ma'am. Boy, this is a very long sidebar, y'all. Thank you so much for joining. Hi, Joe. Not at this moment, but tonight you may. I am having a live tonight. If you'd like to join us and talk, we can do it then. I don't have the phone connected. I guess the jury is leaving. They may be done for the day.
This court is in session. Please be seated.
All right, we don't talk like that on this page.
So jurors, I can assure you that by Monday, I mean, we're in really good shape. It's an organizational situation that I have to deal with. So we've been dealing with that. We appreciate your patience and we are in good shape. And Ms. Gianetti, if you need the exhibit, it's here.
Terrific. May I have it published again on the
Yes.
Now, Lieutenant, with regard to the injuries that you observed, did you notice any lividity on the body when you were looking at John O'Keefe?
Being hypothermic, he was very pale overall. So the skin wasn't pinked up yet. So it's hard to really judge the rest of the skin that way until it's warmed up and much later into the scene.
You are familiar with the term
Yep.
lividity, though?
Yes.
Could you just explain that to the jury?
That's like bruising.
Bruising.
So the pooling of blood in lower sections. So for like a cardiac arrest patient, when they have lividity, it looks like bruising on the underside where all the blood has pooled. And we did not really notice that.
But it's not actually bruising from an injury. It's just the blood being
Settling down.
Right.
It's the same thing, yes.
One at a time, please.
Yep, sorry. So it appears like bruising, and bruising is basically pooling of blood under the skin. So this is lividity is just gravity-fed pooling of blood under the skin. And it usually happens what is the section of the body that is lowest.
I see. Okay. Now, with regard to the scratches that you've testified about and that you now observe on Exhibit 382, I believe, and you'll correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe your testimony on direct examination was that you observed them in the forearm area, correct?
It was the right, like forearm to arm. I was trying to signal like right up here, but yeah.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah.
I guess that's my.
Yeah.
It wasn't just on the.
Just, not just, it was the arm area. You know, mostly what I noticed was forearm, but there was some around there.
Okay, so
Yeah.
it wasn't just below the elbow.
It wasn't up just below the elbow.
There was some above the
Yes.
elbow as well?
Yep.
That's consistent with Exhibit 382?
Correct.
I'm going to just have a moment, Your Honor.
Yes.
No further questions.
Delali, anything further?
No, Your Honor.
All right, Lieutenant, thank you very much. So
Yeah,
you're all
thank
set. Our next witness, Mr. Lally.
Yes, Your Honor. The Commonwealth would call Mr. Daniel Whitley to the stand.
Watch your step. Clerk, and raise your right hand, please. Do you solemnly swear the evidence given in the court and during the case now and here is for the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon.
Whenever you're ready, Mr. Lally.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon.
Could you please state your name and spell your last name for the jury?
Daniel Whitley, Whitley.
And what do you do for work, sir?
I'm a paramedic firefighter with the Town of Canton Fire Department.
And how long have you been a member of the Canton Fire?
I was hired in March of '06.
And prior to that work with the Canton Fire Department, did you work within that same field in any other capacity or for any other company?
Yes, correct. I worked for American Medical Response out of Brockton as an EMT intermediate and a paramedic for 5 years.
And you're a certified paramedic, is that correct?
Correct.
And how long have you held that certification?
It was, I believe, November of 2006 that I got that certification.
And is there any sort of continuing educational component or recertification process that's involved with being a certified paramedic?
Yes, we recertify every 2 years. We're required to hold basic life support card, which is just generally CPR, and advanced cardiac life support, which is ACLS. It's more dealing with EKGs and how to run resuscitations, cardiac arrests, things of that nature.
Now, sir, if I could turn your attention to January 28th into January 29th of 2022, were you working with the Canton Fire Department on those dates?
Yes,
What kind of shift were you working on?
24-hour shift, 8 a.m. to 8 a.m.
And where were you assigned on that particular date?
The Ponkbog Station, Station 2.
The Ponkabog Station, where is that located within Canton?
The north side of town on Southmont Street.
And how were you assigned to a specific duty or a specific?
Yes, I was assigned to Ambulance 2 with Jason Becker. As I was a field training officer at that point, and he was just finishing up his field training after he recently became certified as a paramedic.
And now, at some point shortly after 6 a.m., were you aware of a call or dispatch in regard to Station House 1?
Yes, we had just returned from a previous call about 5 a.m. and heard the tones go off. Actually, we were in the day room, which is where basically it's the living room of a fire station. And we heard the tones go off. We heard the police going to Fairview Road. And we just kind of sat and were wondering what was going on there.
Now, you yourself, you and firefighter Becker, were you dispatched to a call as well, approximately 6:41 or 6:42 a.m.?
Yes.
And at the time that you received that dispatch, what, if anything, were you aware of with regard to the prior call that the other ambulance went?
So when the tones go off between the two stations, we're able to hear what the dispatch complaint is, what they're going for, and it came in as, I believe, CPR in progress in the snow or something to that regard. So we knew that was a fairly serious call that Station 1 had gone to.
Now, when you received your dispatch at approximately 6:42 a.m. or so, what was that call in regard to, and where did you respond?
We were dispatched for a Section 12.
And as far as your assignments within the ambulance between yourself and firefighter Becker, with regard to this call, who was doing what?
I was driving. He's what we call the tech, the lead paramedic on the case. That's just generally how we operate.
And from your response, or your driving from Station 2 to Fairview Road, what, if anything, did you observe or experience en route in between the two?
At that point, it was snowing pretty heavily. We were coming down Chapman Street, getting ready to take the right onto Fairview. We nearly slid off the road, making the turn onto Fairview. It was snowing that heavily, and I don't believe the roads had been really plowed or treated or anything like that for us to, so it was pretty slippery.
Now, in addition to ambulance number 2 that you and firefighter Becker were in, what, if any, others?
They had from 2:30, 3:30, but probably not since.
Call as well.
There was Engine 3, which is the District 1 engine, and at least 2 police cruisers. And then another gray SUV kind of further down from where we parked.
Now, when you arrive in this area on Fairview Road, what, if anything, do you sort of observe as far as who's there when you arrive?
When I got out, my Lieutenant Woodbury and Sam Park were there.
And they were on the engine, is that correct?
They were on the engine, correct.
Now, beyond sort of the personnel from your department, you mentioned that there were some police officers there as well?
Yes, Melanie and Sarah, and then 2 other females, at least 2 other females.
And the other 2 females, where were they when you first sort of get out of the ambulance?
A few yards ahead of us. a few dozen yards ahead of us, I'd say.
And were there any other vehicles beyond sort of first responders that you observed on scene?
Just that other gray SUV.
And so I guess my question is,
That was a
where were the two
POV.
females that you observed in relation to the gray SUV?
Near it, maybe in front of, maybe one was inside. There were three females there.
And at some point while you're on scene, you learned the identity of your patient, correct?
Yes,
And what was the name of the patient?
Karen Reed.
And you had some conversation with Karen Reed that day, is that correct?
Yes,
And do you see Karen Reed in the courtroom?
I do.
Could you just describe as to where she's seated or an article of clothing that she's wearing?
She's seated right at that table right there.
Let the record show.
If you could just point as to where she is.
Right here.
No, it's just that's record reflect identification.
Okay.
Now, when you first sort of arrive on scene, who, if anyone, is the first person that you talk to?
Lieutenant Woodbury and Sam Park.
And following that conversation, who, if anyone, do you speak to?
Probably briefly Lieutenant Mullaney, but more, I'm sorry, not Lieutenant, Officer Mullaney and Officer Saraf.
Now, following your conversation, well, let me ask you this sort of in general terms. When you respond to a call for Section 12, what is sort of the protocol that you go through in regard to that?
Whether it's a Section 12 or any call, basically, the lead tech generally takes over immediate patient care, goes over, assesses. Usually the partner will go over and try and find out background details, try and find not only, well, especially for a Section 12, you want to get, the tech will get, which is Jason's role, the patient story, and then I'll get everyone else's story.
Meaning, why
And,
are you so upset and
At some
wanting to
point,
self-harm?
you have a conversation with Ms. Reed as well.
Oh, yes.
And where is that in relation to vehicles on scene? So what is that initial conversation?
The initial conversation, she was very upset. She kept saying, so we had a Section 12 written, and that was to take her to the hospital because she made threats against her life, saying, I don't want to live anymore. If my husband dies, I don't want to be alive anymore.
Not husband.
And myself and Jason and Lieutenant Woodbury were kind of like, well, that's seemingly more in the lines of normal grieving process after something traumatic happens to a loved one, whether they're going to die or not. We kind of didn't feel like it kind of led to that level of a Section 12 to have her transported to the hospital. So at that point, I exited the ambulance and I went to speak with Officer Saraf, and I said, this kind of doesn't, if we want her to be at the hospital, get a full eval, we're going to need more than just, if my husband dies, I want to die, because that seems just like normal grieving
Ooh,
things
this
to
is
say.
getting juicy.
And so I went back to the ambulance. He went, I don't know where he went. I don't know whether it was cruiser or what. But he came back, notified me that her.
Sustain.
And from that conversation, did you receive more information or more clarity as to statements that Ms. Reed had made?
Yes, Officer Saraf had said that.
Objection.
So
Objection.
not what he said, sir. So
We
You
were
are
informed
unmuted.
that,
Objection.
I'm not sure.
so you can't testify to what somebody else told you. You can when there's no objection regarding what Ms. Reed told you,
Okay.
but you can't testify what anybody else told you.
Okay.
So when I say sustain, that means you have to stop.
Okay.
And the lawyer will ask another question.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
He's not testified a lot.
Your Honor. So, Firefighter Whitley, at some point, specific to your conversations with the defendant, Ms. You described sort of her demeanor or any observations you made in relation to that as you were speaking.
Yes, she was very upset. she kept asking if there was any chance. She kept asking us if we knew if the person ambulance 1 had transported was alive or dead, and we could not speak to that. She asked if somebody could be alive in the snow without a jacket for many hours. And at that point, we were just trying to give her any hope that whomever A1 transported was still alive. And we kind of just talked about far off hypothermia cases where, kids have fallen in rivers and been submerged for many minutes, maybe even hours, and survived with no neurological deficits. So we were just trying to give her some sort of hope on the way to the hospital that there was a chance that her husband could be alive.
Now, at this point, what, if anything, did you know about sort of the relationship between your patient, the defendant, Ms. Reed, and the patient from ambulance 1 that had been transported previously?
She identified him as her husband.
And is that something that she said once or more than once?
Many, many times.
Now, she asked you some questions about his status and made specific reference to his clothes. Is that correct?
The only thing I recall is asking if he could have survived without a jacket.
Now, as far as these
Sorry, y'all. Puppers needed to go to ladies' room. Okay, back to trial.
conversations that you had with Ms. Reed, where did they occur in relation to the ambulance?
They were in the back of the ambulance.
And who, if anyone, was present in the back of the ambulance beyond yourself and the defendant?
Jason Becker.
And with reference to, you mentioned that firefighter Becker was sort of the lead paramedic or the lead tech on this. Is that correct?
Yes.
So is there, from sort of his role and your role, what are some of the sort of differences in the duties and responsibilities in relation, we'll call it?
So for any Section 12 or our department policy is there will be 2 EMTs, paramedics, firefighters with during transport at all times. That's both for our safety and the patient safety. So that's why it wasn't just 2 EMTs or paramedics driving to the hospital. I was in back with Jason, and Sam Park was driving.
Now, as far as you testified earlier about observations of her being upset or distraught, is that correct?
Correct.
Was that consistent throughout your interaction with her, or?
No. There would be episodes where she would go from crying in her hands to all of a sudden perking up. She was crying about having to take care of kids, saying she couldn't do it. And I was saying, you can do this. It's not as hard as it seems. She kept saying, I can't take care of these kids. They're not my kids and they're not his kids. That's when I figured out who ambulance 1 transported. And I was saying, well, it seems like you have a good, strong support system. People who came and helped you in a blizzard to help come find your husband. She said, she asked me if I knew Kerry Roberts. I said I did. She said anybody who knows Kerry Roberts wouldn't say those things. And that kind of took me aback a bit. It seemed strange to say something like that after you were just crying because your husband was dead. Roberts wouldn't say those things. And I was saying, well, it seems like you have a good, strong support system. People who came and helped you in a blizzard to help find your husband. She said, she asked me if I knew Kerry Roberts. I said I did. She said anybody who knows Kerry Roberts wouldn't say those things. And that kind of took me aback a bit. It seemed strange to say something like that after you were just crying because your husband was dead.
Take you back to within.
I was just kind of surprised.
If I could take you back within that just for a minute. So you had testified that during that, her description, you sort of realized who was the patient in ambulance 1, is that correct?
Yes.
And what, if anything, made you realize, or who did you think it was?
I live in and grew up in the Ponquag neighborhood of Canton. And Mr. O'Keefe was known for taking on his niece and nephew after, I'm sorry, I'm not sure positive of the relationship, but I believe it was his sister and his brother-in-law passed away. And it was something people admired him for, people looked up to him for. But I was able to, I also, I moved into the Ponquag neighborhood back after living outside of Canton for a few years. The O'Keefes lived diagonally across from me. I never had any sort of interaction with him or anything. When I moved in, my wife was probably about 6 months pregnant and I had 2 toddlers, so I was pretty busy. I figured he was pretty busy. I never even had a chance to introduce myself or anything before he moved to Meadows, which is how I kind of figured out.
Your Honor, I object to this line of questioning.
Okay, next, sustain. Next question.
Good.
Now, you had also mentioned during your
It went to a
conversation,
narrative instead of answering a question.
she had said some things about Kerry Roberts, correct?
Correct.
And how is it that you know Kerry Roberts?
Well, Kerry lives around the corner from me.
Objection.
No, I'll allow that. Next question, please.
How long have you known Kerry Roberts?
Just from moving back into the neighborhood, she would run the neighborhood block party, and she put out that she would like the fire truck there on the neighborhood Facebook page. So I volunteered to bring the fire truck to the neighborhood block party.
Not how do you, how
And,
long?
Was Ms. Roberts seen on Fairview when you arrived in your ambulance?
Yes,
So she was one of the other females along with the defendant.
correct.
Now, with reference to when you brought up as far as support system, and included Ms. Roberts within that, what, if anything, did the defendant say about Ms. Roberts?
Objection.
Sustain. Next question, please.
Hearsay. I can't wait for the cross. Hopefully it'll be a good bang bang. I think this might have some
conversation
fireworks.
that you had with the defendant in the ambulance, about how long a period of time are we talking about?
20, 25 minutes.
And beyond what you've already testified to, what did sort of that conversation consist of, or what was the sort of tone and tenor?
You're
of that
trying to get to something specific he's not
Um,
giving you.
Again, we were just trying to give her any support. She was, once we were getting closer to the hospital, we
Objection.
Objection, Your Honor.
So the tone and tenor. So what can you tell us about that? That's admissible, Mr. Yannetti. Go ahead.
the tone, she would go from being almost despondent to when she asked me if I knew Carrie Roberts, the only tone I can use to describe it is snarky.
Objection. Move to strike.
I'll strike that.
Yeah, but it's sad.
Now, you transported to a Good Samaritan, is that correct?
Correct.
And when you, during the transport, where are you in relation to Ms. Reed from Fairview to Good Samaritan?
I'm sorry, I don't understand.
Were you in the front or
During
the back of the
transport,
EMS?
Ms. Reed is where within the ambulance?
I believe we have what we call a tech bench, which is a long bench. There's the ambulance stretcher, and then to next to the ambulance stretcher is, we call it the CPR seat, and then that's where Miss Reed sat. And then I was in what we call the airway seat, which is
Up at the head,
basically like a captain's chair behind the
the driver.
stretcher.
And in addition to yourself and the defendant, who, if anyone, else was sort of in the back of the ambulance at that time?
During transport?
Yes.
During transport, it was just me, Jason Becker, and Miss Reed.
So yourself, along with firefighter Becker, and right?
Correct.
Who was driving the ambulance?
Sam Park.
Now, when you arrived at Good Samaritan, what, if anything, happened?
Miss Reed was asking to be able to see John, and I made the decision that I would run ahead to see if that was in the realm of possibility with the emergency room physician there. So I ran ahead. I came into they call it the code room at Good Sam, and I asked if the wife could see the husband. The ER doctor asked if she would be upset.
Yes.
I said if she would be upset if she was allowed to or not. And I said she's going to be upset. I believe she's going to be upset either way. He was asking if she would get in the way of the resuscitation efforts, and I said it's possible. She's very upset.
And so, once you arrive at the hospital with the patient, where do you go along with Ms. Reed?
We escorted her down to we call it the psych hall or the behavioral hall at Good Sam.
And about how long was it after you escorted her into the hospital that you stayed with her following that?
At least 10 minutes.
And during those 10 minutes, how would you describe sort of her behavior or demeanor during that time?
Objection.
No, he can testify to that.
He was giving the nurses a hard time about, I'm sorry, she was giving the nurses a hard time about having to get into a Johnny, about having to submit a urine sample. Even the AR techs went to the physician who was in the code room to see if she could not have to wear a Johnny, and the ER doc said no, if she's in the psych hall, she's a psych patient, needs to be in a Johnny. So at that point, there was just a nurse and a tech. We don't usually leave a psych patient with just a single nurse and a tech. So we decided to wait until security had gotten there before we left.
May I have one moment?
Yes.
Wow. So they really took her all the way into the psych ward.
Nothing further at
Oh
this time,
my
Your Honor. Thank you.
gosh.
All right, Mr. Yannetti.
Thank you. Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon.
So, Mr. Whitley, when you showed up, you learned that Karen Reed was the patient that you were to deal with, correct?
Correct.
And it was your expectation that she would be going to the hospital, correct?
Correct.
One of the things that you do when you transport somebody to the hospital is you try to get a medical history, correct?
Yep.
Why is that important?
Generally, we get pertinent medical history to pass on to the hospital. So if something were to happen where the patient wasn't able to history, it gets passed on to the next caregiver, which would be the nurses, doctors at the hospital.
Okay. More information is always better than less information, correct?
I would say so.
And with regard to Ms. Reed, did you take a medical history from her?
I assume Jason did.
Okay. Did you learn the results of that medical history?
You'd have to refer to Jason's report.
I may have a moment now.
Yes.
May I approach?
Yes.
Mr. Whitley, if I I'm actually going to show you two documents with your permission. One would be Jason's report.
Okay.
And you would talk about Jason Becker, correct?
Correct.
The other is a police report from Sergeant Yuri Buchnick. I'm going to give you the second page of that.
So let's do them one at a time.
Sure. And you've asked for Jason Becker's report, so I'll give you that first, okay?
Okay.
And when I approach you, I'm going to hand this to you, and I just ask you to look at it silently by yourself,
Okay.
and then look up at me when you're done.
Okay.
I'm going to collect that from you, if you don't mind.
The first report was the NFIRS report from my lieutenant.
Was Jason Becker's report included in it
Yes.
as well?
Yep.
Having reviewed those documents, does that refresh your memory as to the medical history that was taken?
Yes.
And what can you tell us about that?
Just lists multiple sclerosis.
What is multiple sclerosis?
I believe it's a neurodegenerative disease where the myelin sheathing of the trying to think of the word here, but
I don't mean to put you on the spot.
you know, I understand.
I'm sure you do. It's a disease.
It's a disease that's progressive and has neurological muscle control things involved with it.
And when you say progressive, that means it gets worse over time as you age?
As I understand it.
And that was the medical history you got from Karen Reed?
Correct.
I have nothing further.
All right. So, sir, you are all set. Thank you, Mr. Whitley. Your next witness, Mr. Lally?
Yes, Your Honor, we'll call Mr. Jason Becker to the stand.
Please watch your step. You get there, please face that clerk and raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear the understanding of the court and jury in the case now hearing should be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Okay, whenever you're ready, Mr. Lally.
Thank you. Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon.
Could you please state your name and spell your last name for the jury?
First name is Jason. Last name is Becker. Becker.
And what do you do for work, sir?
I'm a firefighter paramedic, Canton Fire Department.
And how long have you been a member of the Canton Fire Department?
5.5 years.
And prior to that, what, if any, other employment did you have sort of within that same field?
I worked at Found Ambulance and South Shore Hospital.
How long did you work at each of those respective positions?
Found Ambulance was about 5 years. South Shore Hospital, approximately 3 years.
And with regard to South Shore Hospital, what is it that you did there?
I was a nursing assistant in the emergency room.
And with regard to your work as a firefighter paramedic for the Canton Fire Department, you were a certified paramedic?
Yes,
And when did you first receive that certification?
October 2021.
And is that something that you receive, or when you receive that, is something that goes on in perpetuity, or is that something that you have a continuing educational component or recertification?
It's Con Ed education. You do every 2 years, you have to recertify.
Now, sir, if I could turn your attention
I'm
to,
sorry, y'all, I
January
had to
28th,
step out. Did they bring him back?
January 29th, 2022. Were you working on that occasion?
I was.
And where were you?
And with the court's permission, Your Honor, may I have that published on the screen for the jury?
Yes.
The decision that I would run ahead to see if that was in the realm of possibility with the emergency room physician there. So I ran ahead. I can't.
Arrive at the hospital with the patient.
I know
where
I'm
you
jumping,
go
y'all. There's
with,
nobody on right now, so it's just me.
Okay. More information is always better than less information, correct?
I would say so.
And with regard to Ms. Reed, did you take a medical history from her?
I assume Jason did.
Okay. Did you learn the results of that medical history?
You'd have to refer to Jason's report.
I may have a moment, Your Honor.
Yes.
Just ask you to look at it silently by yourself
Okay.
and then look up at me when you're done.
The first report was the NFIRS report from my lieutenant.
What
Cheating has.
To the stand.
It's all set. All right. So, sir, you are all set. Thank you, Mr. Whitley. Your next witness, Mr. Lally?
Yes, Your Honor, the call will call Mr. Jason Becker to the stand.
Oh, he's in. He looks like the other guy. That's why I thought they brought him back. That's why.
You solemnly swear the understanding of the court and jury in the case now hearing should be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
I understand the importance of carrying everybody over, but come on.
Okay, whenever you're ready, Mr. Lally.
Thank you. Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon.
Could you please state your name and spell your last name for the jury?
First name is Jason. Last name is Becker. CKER.
And what do you do for work, sir?
I'm a firefighter paramedic, Canton Fire Department.
And how long have you been a member of the Canton Fire Department?
5.5 years.
And prior to that, what, if any, other employment did you have sort of within that same field?
I worked at Found Ambulance and South Shore Hospital.
How long did you work at each of those respective positions?
Found Ambulance was about 5 years. South Shore Hospital, approximately 3 years.
And with regard to South Shore Hospital, what is it that you did there?
I was a nursing assistant in the emergency room.
And with regard to your work as a firefighter paramedic for the Canton Fire Department, you a certified paramedic?
Yes,
And when did you first receive that certification?
October 2021.
And is that something that you receive, or when you receive that, is something that goes on in perpetuity, or is that something that you have a continuing educational component or recertification?
It's Con Ed education. Every 2 years, you have to recertify.
Now, sir, if I could turn your attention to January 28th, 2022 into January 29th, 2022. Were you working on that occasion?
I was.
And where were you assigned? I'm sorry. What type of shift were you working on that occasion?
What type of shift?
Yes, like what hour to what hour?
8 a.m. to 8 a.m., 24 hours.
So 8 a.m. on the 28th until 8 a.m. on the 29th.
Correct.
And where were you assigned on that day?
I was at Canton Station 2, Ambulance 2.
And who, if anyone else, was assigned with you to Ambulance 2 at Station 2 on that day?
Daniel Whitley, firefighter Daniel Whitley.
Now, at some point when you were working on the 29th, shortly after 6 a.m. or so, did you become aware of a call for station house number 1?
Yes.
And what, if anything, were you aware of as far as that earlier call?
As far as we know, there was a man down on the side of the road, initial dispatch. And I believe it was upgraded eventually to CPR in progress.
Now, at some point following that, approximately 6:41 a.m. or so, did you, your station house, get a dispatch to Fairview Road?
Yes.
And what, if anything, was that dispatch?
A psych eval, possible section 12.
And in addition to yourself and firefighter Whitley in ambulance 2, what, if any, other sort of vehicles or apparatuses were dispatched by your department to that call?
Canton Engine 3.
And if you know, who, if anyone, was on Canton Engine 3 at that time?
Lieutenant Greg Woodbury, firefighter Sam Park.
Now, with regard to the ambulance that you were in with firefighter Whitley, what were sort of, let me ask you this, between sort of call volume, what, if any, sort of policy or protocol is there as far as who does what on a particular call?
We switch off.
And so on this particular call that you were dispatched to Fairview Road, what were sort of each of your respective duties and responsibilities between yourself and firefighter Whitley?
Firefighter Whitley was the driver at that point, and it was my tech, is what it's called. So the next patient would be mine.
And so as sort of you were the lead tech on this, is that correct?
Correct.
And so as far as the lead tech's role, what, if any, duties or responsibilities do you have in regard to writing a report?
It's my report. That'd be right.
May I approach the witness?
Yes.
When you were documents, just ask you to review that, look up for me.
This is firefighter Becker. Thank you so much for joining. I hope you're having an awesome day.
The first report up here is the engines. Second one would be mine.
You recognize the first few pages of that as the engines report, and the last few are yours, correct?
Correct.
And that's your report with relation to this dispatch and this call, correct?
Correct.
May I approach again, Your Honor?
Yes.
I want the seat to introduce in a minute as the next.
So both reports through this witness? Is there any objection?
Yeah, just take a look at the DA's copy.
Hmm? Why are they talking? I guess they're discussing the evidence.
Okay.
All's good. Let's go. Sidebar. All right. So, what they're talking about mostly right now is her Section 12 psych eval. I found it interesting that Daniel Whitley said he did not see her qualifying for the psych eval as much as a grieving woman. He kept saying her husband, they were not married, they were dating. I don't even know if they were actually even engaged. I haven't even heard that come across. So at this point, girlfriend, I guess because of her hysterics and her grieving and the level in which she was grieving, that he assumed they were married. Sorry, I had to level my doggy. So today has been kind of a flatline day as far as a lot's concerned, other than us mostly talking about one
Bless you.
Section 12 and the other was a paramedic having a connection with another person in this group.
With that addendum, I would seek to introduce and admit that as the next exhibit.
Okay.
Hi,
Your
Speckle!
permission, I would
Yay!
report to the witness.
Yes.
Brighten my day. Hey, let me get this off. We're back from the sidebar. Sparkles, right now we were discussing the EMT that came back at 6:42 a.m., picked up Karen Reed for Section 12,
Arrive in
like
the area
eval.
of 34. When you arrive in the
Yes,
area of Fairview,
this is live.
if anything, is it that you first
They
observed?
came back about an hour or so ago.
Coming down the street or on scene?
Yes, coming down.
Coming down the street, see live police lights. You can see
At least.
the fire engine, and I believe I said it's one black SUV.
And where is it that
There's a discrepancy between gray and black on the SUVs.
So those are the vehicles that you see.
I believe we parked. If the SUV was facing towards us, we parked to the left. I don't recall where the police cruiser was, though.
Come here. Please.
And when you first arrived there, who, if anyone, is it that you first speak with when you get there?
When we got out of the ambulance, I passed Officer Saraf and Officer Mulaney. They kind of briefed us, and then I walked over to the black SUV.
And when you walk over to the black SUV, who is it that you observe in that black SUV?
I saw two females.
And of those two females, do you see one woman in the
Other
front?
sight?
I do.
Could you just identify
Sparkles,
as
you
who's
offend
or
me.
article of clothing
Not.
she's wearing?
Right over there, the jacket on.
That's the record reflect identification of the defendant.
Okay.
Now, with respect to the defendant, Ms. Reed, where within the vehicle is she when you first come up to the vehicle and observe?
When I remember, she was in the front passenger seat.
And what, if any, knowledge did you have as far as the defendant, Ms. Reed, and her relationship to the
It's
earlier
okay,
call
babe.
that ambulance one had been dispatched to?
Very little. I think we had gotten briefed that she was the wife of the previous patient.
And was that something that she had stated or something that somebody else had stated? Where does that awareness come
I
from?
believe it was one of the Canton police officers that said it.
They keep
I'm
calling
sorry.
her
What was that
wife.
answer?
It was one of the Canton police officers.
Okay.
She's not a wife. She is a girlfriend.
And so when you walk
Oh,
up to the car, what is
Sparkles.
it that you
Go to our
say, or
live
what, if
chat
any,
for mods,
conversation did you
please.
have with Ms. Reed at that point?
So I went up to the window and introduced myself and just kind of asked what was going on.
And how did she respond to that?
She was kind of, she was distraught. She was crying. She kind of told us that the statements she may have made she didn't mean it because of the current events that she had just gone through.
What, if anything, did she say about that? If anything, did she say about what she had gone through?
That she had just done CPR on her husband.
They still don't
And
know that
so
she
referred
is
to
a
him as
girlfriend.
her husband as well.
Yes.
And this conversation that you had sort of at the side of the SUV, is that through the door, through the window?
From what I recall, it was through the
I
window.
thought I sent you a request.
And at some point, does the conversation move to the ambulance?
Correct.
About how long was the conversation at the vehicle before the conversation shifted to the ambulance?
5 to 10 minutes. Report and ask him some basic triage questions.
And is that sort of the policy or the protocol or what you followed in this instance with Ms. Reed?
Correct.
Now, beyond what she had indicated to you initially, what, if anything, was she asking you during the course of your conversation with her once you were in the ambulance?
She kept asking if he was dead or could he be dead.
Is that something that she said once or more than once or something?
More than once.
And,
I'm sorry, they're
can you
beating a
describe
dead
sort of the
horse
tone
over
of her
this.
voice when she was saying it?
How many witnesses do we need to have?
It was pretty, it's kind of like it was a rapid kind of pressured speech. She was just a lot repetitive.
And as you were speaking with her, what, if any, observations did you make of her facial area?
She had blood on her face and her neck and her chin. Blood around her mouth, her neck and chin.
Y'all, I can
So with
appreciate
regard
them being
to,
thorough,
sort of
but
any
how
earlier,
many people do
suicidal
we need
statements,
to
what, if anything,
run
did she
as
say in relation
witnesses
to that?
that say the
She
same
said she made him
exact
because
thing
she just went through
all
a traumatic
day
event,
long?
seeing her husband dead, and she had no plan on acting on it.
Yep.
Now, pursuant to a Section 12 call, what, if anything, are you
Sparkles, I need your email, and
doing as
then I
far as
send it to you.
documentation goes?
I
with
ask for you to join.
respect to
I
vital
thought I
signs?
have.
Well, it depends on the situation. In a situation with misreads, I took a regular just vital signs, pulse oximetry, see her heart rate. But for someone like a female psych patient, it's more verbal.
And as far as any of those sort of vital signs and things that you took, what, if anything, abnormal did you note in regard to that?
There's nothing too abnormal. Just the heart rate might have been a little bit high, but within normal range.
Could you please keep your voice up, sir? Thank you.
Sorry. With the vital signs, her heart rate was a little high. It was 98, but it was nothing concerning.
And during the time that you're having this conversation with her in the back of the ambulance, how would you describe her demeanor throughout?
She would have periods of calmness, and then other periods she would appear agitated because she didn't want to go to the hospital. But all in all, she was cooperative with us.
Now, at some point, she's cooperative, correct, and agrees to go?
Eventually, yes.
When you say eventually, was there some conversation related?
We kind of mentioned to her basically what a Section 12 is. And unfortunately, she'd have to come with us voluntarily or involuntarily.
So you're explaining the process to her, is that correct?
Correct.
Eventually, she agrees to go, correct?
Correct.
And as far as the transport goes, who, if anyone, is in the back of the ambulance with her during the transport period?
Me and firefighter Whitley.
And who, if anyone, was driving the ambulance to the hospital?
Now I know
Firefighter
why
Park.
this is going to go for
Which
8
hospital
weeks.
did you transport Ms. Reed to?
We went to the Good Samaritan Hospital.
Now, During the course of transfer to the hospital or transport to the hospital, what, if anything else, did Ms. Reed say with reference to children?
She was talking about Mr. O'Keefe's children, and she was unsure, and she didn't know if she'd be able to take care of them. She was worried about that.
She was worried about that.
Yeah, she's worried about who would take care of the children if he was pronounced dead.
And what, if anything, did she say about herself in reference to the children?
She didn't think that she could take care of them on her own.
Now, as far as this other person or the patient from the earlier call, how did she refer to that person in relationship to yourself?
She was calling him husband.
She was calling him husband? They're not married. They're not even engaged.
To this particular, with reference to Ms. Reed in this conversation, what, if anything, did she say in regard to the last time that she had spoken to who she called her husband?
She had said that they had gotten into an argument. She was sad because that was the last thing she had said to him was the argument, but she didn't go into detail on what the argument was about or what was said.
Now, with regard to her speaking about sort of the children, what, if any, further conversation did either yourself or firefighter Whitley have with her in regard to that?
With children?
Yes.
I don't recall.
The other female party that Ms. Reed was initially with in the vehicle when you first arrived, did you know who that was?
I don't know who she was.
And at any point in time, subsequent to that, did you learn who she was?
I did.
And who did you learn her to be?
She was Miss Carrie Roberts.
And with relation to your conversation with Ms. Reed on that day of January 29th, what, if anything, did she say about Ms. Roberts?
Objection.
Sustained.
The regard to the sort of medical questions that you were asking, from those medical questions, what, if any, questions would you typically ask someone with relation to consumption of alcohol or drugs?
Well, probably part of the psych assessment, I asked if she had taken any drugs or alcohol, and she had denied it at that point.
She said she had not, correct?
Correct.
The observations that you testified to earlier in regard to her, and by her I mean Ms. Reed's demeanor, did that change at all during the course of your interaction with her, or was that consistent throughout?
Demeanor as in?
It's a poorly phrased question. Let me try and rephrase it. So with regard to her demeanor, throughout the course of your interaction with her, how would you describe that?
She was cooperative. Then she'd be calm, and then eventually she would kind of get a little agitated and repetitive questions. But she seemed distraught.
Now, with respect to the person she indicated was her husband, what, if any, questions did she ask either you or firefighter Whitley or both in relation?
She was asking if he was dead, or could he be dead? Could be dead, and she said, "Could I have hit him?"
Was that something that she asked once or more than once?
It wasn't a lot. It was more of could he be dead? Could he be dead?
So somewhat repetitive, is that correct?
Correct.
Just one moment, Your Honor.
Yes.
Sorry. Firefighter Becker, just my own clarification. You testified earlier that first arriving on scene and first spoke with Ms. Reed, she indicated that there was some statements that she said there were some statements that she did not meet, correct?
Correct. Suicidal statements.
And so, exactly. So my question is, that was in reference to the suicidal statements she had made prior to your arrival, correct?
Correct.
Not to any subsequent statements, correct?
Correct.
Nothing further.
All right. Cross-examination.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon.
You and I have never met, right?
I believe so.
I wanted to go back to one piece of testimony that you offered on direct examination, if I may.
Sure.
You had, in response to a question from the prosecutor about the medical history and your question to Ms. Reed about whether she had had any alcohol to drink. I believe your answer today was she denied having drank alcohol the night before?
At the time that she was, she could drink. I don't know if she drank alcohol the night before, but at that time I asked if she had any drugs or alcohol, and she said no.
I'm sorry, if I just didn't hear.
Yeah,
the
you
answer.
need to keep your voice up, sir, or speak
Okay.
directly into
Sorry.
the microphone.
So I asked her if she had any drugs or alcohol, and she said no.
Oh, if she had any drugs.
Well,
or
if she
alcohol.
taken any drugs or alcohol, she said no.
Did you specify a time period?
I just assumed it'd be in the last few hours for the reason why we were there.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Unsure if she had alcohol days prior, but for the reason why we were there.
Okay. So was it your understanding that the two of you had an understanding of what you were asking?
Sure.
Objection, move to
Yeah,
strike.
yeah. So the objection sustained. It's stricken. Ask the question differently, Ms. Tianetti.
Thank you, Your Honor. All right, so I guess with regard to your intent and your state of mind when you were asking that question, you were asking, had you taken any drugs or alcohol within the last few hours? That's what you meant to ask?
Objection.
So the objection sustained.
What did you specifically ask?
So when I ask a patient if any drugs or alcohol, I'm talking about at that point in time, but an hour before, 2 hours before, not days before, weeks before.
Okay,
So-
and this was at 6:40 in the morning?
Correct.
Did you smell any alcohol on her at that time?
I did not.
Okay. You would agree that she did tell you at some point that she had alcohol the night before, correct?
No.
All right. So this is now, what's today, May 3rd of 2024?
Correct.
And this happened back in January, on January 29th of 2022?
Correct.
You were interviewed by a Trooper Michael Proctor on February 14th of 2022. Do you recall that?
I recall meeting with him, yes.
And February 14th of 2022 would have been a little bit more than 2 weeks after January 29th of 2022, correct?
Correct.
Your memory of what Karen Reed told you about whether she had anything to drink the night before would have been much better on February 14th of 2022 when you were talking to Trooper Michael Proctor than it would be today, correct?
Correct.
Because your memory doesn't get better over time, correct?
Certain circumstances, sure.
All right. And with regard to whether Karen had indicated that she took any drugs, You told Trooper Proctor she said that she had not, correct?
Correct.
With regard to whether she had had alcohol the night before, you told Trooper Proctor on February 14th of 2022 that she did consume alcohol last night, correct?
Objection, Your Honor.
All right, I'm going to see a sidebar on this. Please bring that with you, please.
Y'all, I'm so excited. I am looking at my transcript. I'm going to college again. I have a degree. It's a deaf support specialist, ASL interpreting, and I'm going to school for criminal justice. So, yeah, I'm going for criminal justice. So that's why I hopped off here for a minute, because I'm looking at my transfer credits and all that kind of good stuff.
With your permission, I'll repeat the question.
Sure.
You told Trooper Proctor on February 14th of 2022 that Karen had told you that she did consume alcohol the previous night, correct?
If that's in his notes,
Well, is your memory exhausted as to whether you told him that?
I don't recall.
If you saw his report with your statements in it, would that refresh your memory?
Sure.
It's a two-page report. I'll give you both, actually. It's a two-page report. I'll give you both pages, but I have highlighted a line on the second page, so I would direct you to that. May I approach?
Yes. And take your time reading it, sir.
Yes, yeah, and please read it silently to yourself and look up at me when you're done.
So I did say.
So, Mr. Becker, a couple of things. Wait for a question,
Oh, I'm sorry.
but
Sorry.
also
Sorry.
you have to keep your voice up.
Okay.
I'm close to you and I'm having trouble hearing you. Most
Okay.
of the jurors are further away.
And the way this works is I have to collect that from you and then ask you a question, okay?
So,
If I may approach you on.
Yes.
Having reviewed that document, does that refresh your memory as to whether or not Karen Reed, or strike that? Having reviewed that report, does that refresh your memory as to the fact that you...
Does that refresh your memory?
Does that refresh your memory?
it does.
Okay. And so did you tell Trooper Proctor on February 14th that Karen Reed had told you on January 29th that she had consumed alcohol the night before that?
Sure. Yes.
Okay. Is it fair to say that when you were listening to her talk at times, that her speech was very rapid?
Correct.
And particularly when she had said the words, you know, is he dead? Is he dead? She would repeat it repetitively, correct?
Correct.
And she was fixated on that, correct?
Correct.
And with regard to the last interaction that she spoke about with whom you thought she said her husband, she didn't give you any detail about that, correct?
She did not.
You don't know whether it was an in-person communication?
That wasn't my position to ask more details about that.
Oh, and I'm not criticizing you, sir. I'm just trying to get to what your knowledge was in terms of
Right.
information you got from her. So she didn't specify that it was an in-person communication, correct?
No,
She didn't specify as to whether it was a phone conversation?
she did not.
She didn't specify whether it was a text message exchange back and forth?
She did not.
And she didn't specify whether it was an angry voicemail that she left, correct?
She did not.
No further questions. Thank you.
Y'all,
Just
I got
one
a
moment,
dog
ma'am.
and a cat
Okay.
at my feet. Thank you, Sparkles.
I have nothing further for this witness, Your Honor.
All right. All right, Mr. Becker or Firefighter Becker, you are all set, sir. Thank you very much.
Sorry about that.
That's okay. Thank you. Yes, you can leave that right where it is. Thank you, sir. Your next witness, Mr. Lally?
Your Honor, may we approach?
Sure.
Let's see who they're bringing up next. I wonder if they're going to end it because it's 2 here, almost 3, 2:46. This is Friday. I'm surprised they haven't ended it by now. Honestly. I don't know. Who's taking bets? We're going to go home. They're going home. It's the end of the day. Who wants to take bets?
Does it make sense that rather than starting with another witness,
I
figure it's a
called
Friday
it.
afternoon, it's been a long week for you all, we'll excuse you at this point. So please do not discuss this case with anyone. Don't do any independent research or investigation into this case. If you happen to see, hear, or read anything about this case, disregard it and let us know. And have a great weekend. Monday will be a full day. We'll see you first thing Monday.
Woo, full day Monday.
Please rise for the jury. Please raise this way.
Y'all, thank you so much for joining me. You guys are awesome. We will be live tonight for Friday, kind of like a follow-up. We're going to talk about a couple of cases. I'm probably going to enjoy a little bit of something fun to drink. Everybody join me. Non-alcoholic liquor. But y'all come and join me at 7 o'clock Central Time. We will catch up. I have all my notes. We're going to go through this from beginning to end to catch everybody up. We're also going to talk about the interview with George Kelly in his case and what's next as far as that. We'll be talking about other cases as well.
I think there's an
Possibly
exhibit in the
Alec
witness
Baldwin
stand.
coming up. Let's see if she speaks to the attorneys.
All right, because I've decided that it makes more sense to do exhibits the old-fashioned way because it's simply not working out. My suggestion is that we take what we have that have actually been introduced because I know you pre-marked nearly 600 exhibits. They have not been introduced into evidence.
Oh, you beg.
So we have numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, 7, 8, 9, 14, 18, and there are additional that are in the 300s and 200s. So what I would like to do is take all of these, and I know Madam Court Reporter has been great about sticking around all late during the week to pre-mark things. This is more important to me that we get the record straight from this point. I would prefer the jurors to have the exhibits in order and not have numbers 200 and 300 in where they should be 15 and 16. So what I would like you to all do is
That's
take a
fair
look
enough.
at the exhibits that have actually been introduced. Their prior numbers, if you have referred to them by their prior numbers, I will permit you for the rest of the trial to say previously referred to as 308, but now exhibit 15 until you feel you don't need to do that anymore. So it means things are going to have to be renumbered. So, Madam Court Reporter, was there anything else we needed to discuss on this? Is there anything else you need from the lawyers? Okay. So, I don't want to use your name. You've got a list of everything, and Mr. McDermott's got a list of everything that's been introduced. Do you need me to do this, or is this something you can all do with Madam Court Reporter? And I want to come out and make sure it's right. All right, so why don't you all take
Very thorough. I like her.
10 minutes to see if you can work this through. I'll come out at the end of 10 minutes, see what you have, and we'll make sure the record's straight. Does that make sense to everybody?
It does. The only thing that I would ask to add to that, Your Honor, is in conformity with the court's ruling as far as redaction to the run sheets and the run reports. I'm not sure if they've been stickered or not, but there are medical records with regard to both the victim and the defendant that would be in there, and I would ask for them to either be marked for identification or taken out at this point. Ms. McLaughlin indicates they haven't been marked yet, so I would just ask to sort of retrieve.
All right, so that's sort of the second point. I assume there are many, many, many pages of medical records, and one of the things I told you this morning is if records are going to be introduced subject to redactions, those redactions have to be done before they're introduced. It's going to take some time. So you have to be, if you're not in agreement, then you need to tell me what you're not in agreement over, and I'll have to decide it, but they need to be redacted beforehand. Just because this is a long trial, I don't want it to take any longer than it necessarily has to be. And we have to make sure all of the exhibits are in order, especially if they do end up numbering in the hundreds. So, all right, so you've factor that into your schedule. We've got many days that we won't be in session. It seems like a good use of council's time to redact records and talk. If you need additional time and we need to cut into the evidence, I'd prefer not to, but I need to know. All right. So I have received from the Commonwealth all of the videos that I requested. I received a flash drive today. When can I get the videos? I thought I was clear yesterday. Apparently I wasn't. So when can I get all of the videos that the defendants intend to introduce? I had hoped to look at them over the weekend.
We can do, it's not a matter of getting them onto a flash drive. That's quick. It's just a matter of getting them to the court. So I would invite the court to direct us how, if you want to use the weekend, let us know. We work on Saturdays and Sundays.
So so you can't do it today? You can't do it before you leave? I don't think your IT person's here, right? Oh, if you can do it before you leave, if he can just download it onto a flash drive, that would be great. Do you want to go talk to him and see how long?
You might be able to do that.
We may be able to do that.
Why don't you talk to him?
Yes. Yes.
All right. That
We won't leave until we give it to you.
That would be great. And Ms. Gianetti, yesterday you did say that you'd also give me some idea on why you think they're coming in.
Sure.
Okay, so if you have that, that would be great.
Yeah.
All right.
You I just want to make sure I'm very clear about what the court would like. We provided the double videos, the ones that we had put the good and Seraph cameras together. The court wants every single video that we intend to produce?
Yes.
For the rest of trial?
Yes.
Okay, understood.
All right,
Wow.
and that's what I requested from both of you. I received, Ms. Gilman, tell me if I'm wrong, but Mr. McDermott handed me a flash drive today that said this was all the Commonwealth's video exhibits. Yes.
And that was after we met this morning, correct? Okay.
All right, so that'd be great. I just, I want to know what's on them. I was surprised yesterday, and I
Understood.
shouldn't be surprised.
Understood.
Wow.
All right, so
you
I'll
got
come out after
surprised? What
you
surprised her?
mark the exhibits. Do you need a break before then, Madam Court Reporter? Mr. McDermott? All right, thanks.
Court, all rise, please.
Okay, looks like we're done, y'all. All right, so what we're going to do is we are going to say farewell, so long, and I will see you guys tonight at 7 o'clock. We're going to have a fun go through. I want everybody to enjoy and actually chat and participate. That is important to me. This is going to be a discussion. If I can figure out how to get my phone hooked up to my thing here and people can call in on my burner phone, that would be fabulous. But we'll see how that works out. In the meantime, everybody stretch, grab yourself some dinner, love on your families, take care of what you got to take care of. And I'll see you back here at 7 o'clock Central Standard Time. All right, guys.